Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
Welcome to the 169th episode of the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Dawson, and with me today is the talented and beautiful Whitney Wegman, who has agreed to join us as our newest co-host of the podcast. You're joining a long line of very talented people who've graced this podcast as co-hosts. Mark Atkinson, Steve Schwartz, Carla Van Wagener, Jessica Drain, Kristen Naomi, now Whitney Wegman. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So this episode is all about getting to know you a little bit, letting our audience, get a feel for you. It should be noted, too, today is an interesting day to sit down and talk to you for the first time because the Intellectual Podcast got accepted into iHeartRadio's lineup today.
That's awesome. I'm just hearing about this news. That's very exciting.
So, pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Whitney, we've worked on a project together now. Well, two projects, same weekend.
Yeah. Long weekend.
I've been aware of you for a while because of your involvement with Heroes and Men, working with Raul. And why don't we start with how long have you been in San Diego?
I have been in San Diego, a little over a year, like a year and a half. Moved here May of 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And what brought you to San Diego?
So I moved out to California to pursue acting after I got my master's in acting. But specifically San Diego because my fiance got a postdoc at UCSD.
Wow.
Yeah. He's a particle physicist, so he's doing sciencey things.
So you like brainy people.
I do. I really love sexy-brained people. That's always been my bag. That, and my friend Melissa told me that all of my boyfriends have always looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. And I had to think about it. Yeah, she's absolutely right. Man, things that are ingrained in us from childhood, I guess.
You got a type, and it was based on a cartoon.
I don't know what that says about me as a person.
Says you're fun, and you probably like Scooby snacks, which in California can mean all sorts of things. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Missouri. Right outside of St. Louis, there's an area that's called New Haven, Missouri. Anyone who's ever been there will know it as the area where all the wineries are. So New Haven, Herman, Washington area.
And what's it like there? Because I'm familiar a little bit with Missouri, and I know it varies greatly from north to south. And
it is the sticks. It took me, when I was growing up, 20 minutes to drive from my house to my high school. And in between my house and the high school, there's nothing. It's just like rolling farmland. Same with if you needed to go to the grocery store, it was a 20-minute drive to get to the grocery store. And that is Missouri in a nutshell. There's a lot of space. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to grow up. I got to do a lot of camping and floating on the river, things of that nature. I had a horse growing up, so very country.
Are you a country girl? Do you like country music and all that?
I like all different types of music. It really just depends on my mood, and there is a mood that requires country music. But yeah, I would say I'm a country girl, and I think I know this because if I'm in the city too long, I get really stir crazy. Mm-hmm. I need to go out and be in nature and just be able to breathe and be present without city around me.
So what made you leave the sticks?
Well, for those who have grown up in the sticks, you know that you hit a certain point where you're like, there has to be something better than the sticks. And so you want to leave. You want to experience other things. But I guess for me, I've always known that I wanted to be an actor since I was in probably 6th grade. And so I knew that I would have to leave eventually. And I went to Kansas City to pursue my undergrad. And I'll give Kansas City this. I know city's in the title, but it's like a small town posing as a big city because no matter where I would go in Kansas City at any given time, I would run into somebody that I knew. And that's like a very small town mentality. But there's enough stuff in Kansas City that you get a taste of city life.
So it's probably a good stepping stone from nothing to kind of pretending to be a big city before moving on to something actually
exactly. Big. It was perfect. Because then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which was...
That's a big city.
Oh my. It was overwhelming. But it ended up being really good for me to do that. And I got a lot of experience down there. There was a lot of film going on because prior to that, I was a theater kid through and through, didn't have a lot of film TV experience, so that was great.
What was your theater experience like in Missouri?
Oh,
like what sort of plays did you guys tackle?
Gosh, let me try and think. Are we going like all the way back to high school or undergrad?
Sure. High school's fine. We can start from there.
Okay. So high school, we did A Piece of My Heart. That was a Vietnam War drama. And so that was a really good one because within our community, we had a lot of events and things where the school was tied to things in the community where we were honoring veterans. So we kind of wrapped that all up into things that were happening in the community. Shakespeare, of course. I got to be in Much Ado About Nothing. And I'm trying to think if there weren't any particularly edgy pieces.
Because like we did Equus in high school.
Whoa. Yeah, no, that's not happening. Missouri's a little more.
I went to high school up here in Encinitas, San Diego, and yeah, we tackled Equus.
Yeah, that wouldn't. I can't think of that happening anywhere in Missouri. I think that the edgiest thing that I got to do was for a competition piece. We did. It was a Lillian Hellman piece that was about lesbians, and I want to say The Hours or... I can't recall it right now. But that was like the edgiest thing I got to do in high school. And that was because it was for a competition, and it was just me and another student. And also my drama teacher knew that I wanted to do this as a career, and he's like, we should push you a little bit. So... Well,
that's good. It's good to have somebody who encourages you early on like that.
Yeah, we had a...
Somebody needs to come get their raw burger. And their sweet potato fries. We're podcasting at Evolution Fast Food, one of my new favorite places in town now that I'm a vegan.
It's really relaxing. It's very pretty right here.
Yeah, it's kind of like weird, calm place in the middle of the chaos of the city.
Yeah, it is. They have their nice little garden and the sunflowers.
Yeah.
I'm trying to paint a visual picture through my auditory discussions. There's some beautiful fuchsia flowers.
And violet.
Oh, and violet. Lovely. All right, where were we?
Some cactus.
Oh, yeah. Cacti.
No, it's just the one. It's just a cactus. And then some yucca.
Yes. All right.
So when you went from high school theater to undergrad, was it very different at the undergrad? Were you doing more challenging productions there, or was it still like it's Missouri, Kansas City?
Again, I feel like most of the more challenging moments came within the classes. Mm-hmm. I had an instructor that definitely enjoyed making people feel awkward, so he would give them pieces that were, a lot of cursing or sexual in nature, and that as a teacher now, that makes sense to me because it's like, okay, you're becoming young adults. You need to push yourself. Let's get you out of that comfort zone because if you can do this, you can do anything. As far as our main stage stuff, we always had the musical. We always had a classical piece. And we tried to tailor it more to what our audience was, which tended to be older folks. I'm trying to think if we had anything that particularly pushed the boundaries.
It's weird when it comes to pushing boundaries when your primary audience tends to be blue hairs because they can both appreciate but also be really disgusted.
Yeah.
If you push the boundary too hard.
Yeah, we never really did. I mean, the thing was, since we were in Kansas City, there was this great theater called the Unicorn Theater, and they tended to be the more avant-garde, definitely push the boundaries. And so if you were interested in that, you had this outlet. You could go audition for them and, possibly get in one of their shows. Mm-hmm. Which I never actually did end up working. Well, I worked for them as a sound tech, but not as an actor. So
you've done tech too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have.
Good girl.
David, I have so many degrees. I got my BFA in technical theater, BFA acting, and then dance, music, and a film minor.
Wow.
Yeah. And it only took me 5 years, so I just went one over what normal people do.
How the hell did you do that?
I took full loads every single semester.
Wow. Now you make me feel lazy.
I'm just crazy. I don't relax. I always have my hit list every day written out. My fiance makes fun of me all the time because he's like, Can you just chill for a second? Can you just sit here and watch TV and not be multitasking? I'm like, yeah,
no.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's genetic. My grandmother does the same thing. My mom does the same thing.
Even when I'm watching TV, I've got the 60-inch going in the background. I have my laptop open on a small table in front of me. Oftentimes I'll have my iPad running right here, and I've got my phone going, and I'm messaging and editing and surfing and watching television all at the same time. I can't slow down.
And we wonder why we're insomniacs. We're super overstimulated during the day, and it's my brain won't shut off. I know so many artists who are like that, though. I don't.
When did you start feeling like you were an insomniac?
Oh gosh.
Because for me, it started in the third grade.
Oh, okay. Graduate school is when it really kicked in for me.
Of course, I was an alcoholic in the third grade, so that might have had something to do with it.
Maybe so. Yeah. Again, overstimulation.
Yeah.
Graduate school is what did it for me. Go almost as soon as I got there, and I think it was just my brain was trying to catch up with everything that I was trying to process, because I worked for 2 years after undergrad, and you think you kind of have your craft nailed. You're like, I've been working. I've been a quote unquote professional, and
the folly of youth.
Yeah, the folly of youth. And then I got there, and all these new things were being thrown at me that I thought I understood in one way, and then it's like, nope, not really. You have no idea what you're doing. Go ahead and be crushed for a minute and catch up. So I think that's where the insomnia kicked in, because I was starting to see things in a different way, or things I thought about both myself as a person and as an artist started to change, and it's kind of hard to deal with. You almost lose your identity for a hot minute in grad school, and then you recalibrate and go, okay, this is what I think. And, then it happens again. And I feel like that happens over and over again in life.
Yeah, the way I try and describe it to people is, because I have the general viewpoint that we're all made of this exact same thing as everything else in the universe, right? So in that way, we're all connected.
String theory, man.
Yeah, string theory. We're all star stuff. It's all the same. And if you look at the universe, it's a constant birth, destruction, rebirth cycle over and over and over again. A star is born, it goes through its existence, it explodes and births new stars, which are different from the original star, because the composition's different because of the change of the materials, but we're constantly changing, evolving, growing, and becoming new things over and over and over and over again. And that destruction is part of life. It's part of the importance of our existence.
Yeah, it's necessary.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to just completely tear something down so that you make the space to put something new in that. And that goes not just for buildings, but it goes for emotional standpoints and psychological and philosophical standpoints. And I am not at all the same person today that I was even just a year ago, 4 months ago, before I became a vegan, And I think people are scared of tearing down what they have because they don't know what the new thing will be. But that ability and that willingness to let things tear down, I think, is so important to our growth.
Yeah, it's the whole concept of the unknown, and you don't know if you'll be better afterwards. You just got to jump. And yeah, so my insomnia kicked in grad school whenever I was having total breakdown of who I was as a person, and I feel like I came through it better for it. with a better acceptance of continual change. Like, that's what my final thesis was all about. Like, how as an actor, you have to continually be changing and reevaluating what your process is and who you are and who that character is to you at this point. Because if you play, you can play the same character when you're 20, and then at 30, it's going to be totally different because you understand that character in a different way. I mean, life experiences change us as humans, and as artists, you have to bring your humanity to it. So, absolutely, you always should be changing. If there's ever a constant, it's that nothing's constant.
Exactly. And we've talked about that on the show a bunch the last 6 months to a year. Naomi always referenced it as evolution, constantly evolving. We're always evolving. And I think it's just true, and I think it's the fundamental fabric of nature that's the way things are.
Absolutely.
Just the way things are in this moment won't be the way in the next moment. I mean, we completely recycle the cells of our body like every couple days or something. Like, we're not even physically the same person.
That's very true.
On a continual basis. I mean, it gets really weird when you start to think about it, but we're just not. No, and I don't know. It gets crazy and heady. Like, even though I'm like, quote unquote, I mean, I'm in the arts, right? But so often conversations with other artists veer into like this scientific realm. I think that's why I like sexy brain smart guys, because one of my very first conversations with my fiance was all about string theory because he's a physicist. I was super psyched. I'm like, oh, I don't have to explain this to you and we can just talk about it. And of course, like, okay, when you talk to him about this stuff, it gets way into the numbers game. And I'm like, all right, you lost me about 5 pages ago. Let's just keep with the theories. I can get down with the theories. Let's keep with the theories and the poetry of it. Exactly. Let's not get into the the spreadsheets. Yeah. Let's not get into the math. I don't TT bars. I don't get it. How'd you meet him? Oh gosh, he's gonna hate that I told this story on air. Oh well. So my very first semester of graduate school, because we don't get to audition, they audition the semester before. There were no roles for the graduate students. We were just focusing on getting settled in and getting into our classes, starting to teach, because this is the first time we were teaching at the college level. So I had some free time. And of course, since I already established that I don't like free time or I don't understand how to use it, I decided to be a part of graduate council, which is like student council for grad students. So I'm the events coordinator for graduate council. So I basically get to plan fun parties. And we planned out a Halloween party, of which I was hostessing and selling drink tickets and taking pictures for the website, all this. And John was dressed as Alex from A Clockwork Orange. Nice. Yeah, which I totally appreciated. And I went up to him and was like, oh, hey, can I take your picture? And he's like, sure, if you take a picture with me. That's really cool. We have pictures from the first night we met. And so we get to talking, and he asked me about a tattoo that I have on my wrist, which is a string theory tattoo. And I took all the shapes that are in an Om, like, from Buddhism, Jainism, because for those who don't know about string theory states that at the smallest particles of matter, smaller than quarks, there are these tiny strings that vibrate. And according to what frequency they vibrate, it determines their quarks, determines their atoms, determines their matter. So as David was mentioning earlier, everything in the universe is made up of the same stuff. And it's all interconnected through these strings. Like if you think of the idea of butterfly effect, anything that happens is going to have a cause and effect. And so I got the tattoo as a mindfulness tattoo to remind myself every day to put out the best possible energy into the world, because even if I am totally unaware of it, I will affect something in some way every day. So I want to try and affect the world in the best possible way. So I have this tattoo. And John immediately asked me about the tattoo, of which I launch into my explanation, because that's my go-to. I'm like, let me explain to you what string theory is. He stops me mid-sentence. Mind you, he had been drinking profusely. It was a graduate student council Halloween party, and we were selling drink tickets. So he goes, stop. You don't have to tell me what string theory is. I'm a physicist.
To which I got super excited and go, oh my goodness, you're a physicist? I was just listening to NPR the other day and they were talking about the God particle. Do you know anything about that? Because I think it's really interesting. He's like, oh, that's what I work on. I work on the Higgs Boson. That's my thing. And this was before the Higgs Boson was officially discovered. So we got in this whole big conversation about it, and he was super psyched that anybody even knew what he did, let alone was excited about what he did. And
he must have been really excited the last couple of years with the LHC going online.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, he's gotten to go over there a few times. This last time was his 5th time over there.
Wow.
And, yeah, he's really excited because, well, they discovered the Higgs Boson, and he got to write his thesis on that and do a couple of publications in, Scientific American? I think that's I feel really bad that I don't actually know the publication. But
it was probably that.
I think that's probably right. But now he's working on supersymmetry. So that's what his group is studying right now. And I really haven't heard a whole lot of news on that. So hopefully they find something. I know they shut down the LHC for about 2 years and cranked it up so it's going at the fastest speed it will go. So hopefully they find something. Only time will tell. But
or we all get sucked into a great void.
Or we all get sucked into a great void. Yes.
That's not going to happen.
But yeah, so we talked about that, and then we actually split ways because I had to continue my hostessing duties. And I didn't see him for a month because he failed to get my information. And then we just happened to see each other on another graduate event, and he didn't talk to me the entire day. He was completely mute because, well, he hadn't been drinking, and he's really shy whenever he doesn't have the influence of alcohol.
He's a scientist when he doesn't have alcohol in him.
Exactly.
I see how it works.
So at the very, very end of the day, we happened to get off at the same bus stop because, as it turns out, he lived 2 blocks from where I lived. And we got off at the same bus stop, and I had invited him and a few of his friends to an event that I was having because I was doing a live-action Clue and playing Miss Peacock. And so he was like, oh, I'll get your number. They didn't show up to my event. But I got a call a couple weeks later, and we went out for coffee, and the rest is history. It worked out real well.
Nice. So, Atlanta. So you make the jump to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. How did the culture shock hit you making that jump?
Well, okay. The first big thing was when I moved down there, I just transferred I was working at World Market whenever I lived in Kansas City. And so I transferred to World Market down there and just immediately started going to work. And so for about, the first 4 or 5 months I was down there, I was just pretty much working home. And I got super depressed because I wasn't, it's really hard to make friends after you're out of college. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have any friends. My dad lived down there, so I knew my dad and I knew my stepmom. And I wasn't doing anything creative. And it was crushing. And I didn't even realize that that's what was wrong until I was driving to work at 5 a.m. one morning and listening to Coast to Coast AM.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't totally remember what the show was about, but it was
Greg Norrie or
yeah, Greg Norrie. And
I've been listening to Coast to Coast since way back in the Art Bell days.
Yeah, sometimes they get really interesting with the Star Child alien stuff, but this particular episode was about how your soul knows what it was made for. And so they were talking about how if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in your life, you feel it physically, you feel it mentally, and it's draining. Mm-hmm. And how people have to find what their passion is or it will kill them, essentially. And I was listening to it, and I think they had a story about a lawyer who had been a lawyer for X amount of years, but he was really a very, we're all creative entities, but he just on the spur of the moment quit being a lawyer and went into the arts and was so much happier, and doors just opened for him because that was what he was supposed to be doing. So I'm listening to this and I just started bawling because I'm like, that's why I'm so miserable. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I immediately got a profile on it wasn't Backstage. I can't remember what Atlanta had, but extensively like Backstage.com, and started going out on auditions for theater and film, and just became so much more fulfilled. And then I started meeting friends through doing theater and doing.
Now you're doing
acting.
things that
exactly
are part of your passion, and when you start doing things that are part of your passion, you meet other people who have the same passion, and you find that to get to the string theory thing, the similar frequencies that are vibing at the same vibe as you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I found great people when I finally went for what I was wanting to do, and it was nice. It was a nice realization, and Atlanta became a better place once I started acting again and doing things that were creative outlets.
And what sort of productions did you work on in Atlanta?
Oh gosh, so I got to be on the Vampire Diaries, just as like a student. Meet the Browns, that was a lot of fun. Some independent films while I was down there, and I did two theater pieces. One was a theater festival, so it was a bunch of short theater pieces, and the other was The Dead Guy, which I would love for someone here in San Diego to do it because it is a mixed media production. The whole premise, it's kind of a spoof on reality shows, and the premise is that the lead guy has been offered like $10 million, and whatever he wants to do, his bucket list. But at the end of the season, the audience gets to vote on how he dies, and he has to kill himself or allow someone to kill him. And he's okay with it originally because he's estranged from his mom, he's estranged from his brother, he just broke up with his girlfriend of like 10 years, and he's kind of over it. Like, he's depressed, and so he signs the contract, and so the whole thing is like, what is too far with reality TV? And in the production itself, you have, obviously, it's a stage, but then you'll have this guy who's a cameraman who takes these really close-up shots, and there's usually a projection screen and things like that. So it's fascinating to watch because of the mixed media, and as an actor, it's great to play because it's like, how quickly can you switch back and forth between stage technique and film technique, which, while the base is the same, I feel like there are little tweaks between the two.
Yeah, well, pretty significant tweaks between the two.
But it's fun. It's fun to play with in a show like that. Like,
because the whole thing of being a stage actor, you're projecting to the back of the room, but as a film actor, you're projecting to the lens. It's only 2 feet away from you, 3 feet away from you, and that power and that energy that you've got to convey is very different for the two, and they don't come across the same.
Definitely not. The best advice I was ever given, and actually this wasn't until I got to grad school. A professor named Richard Warner said, if you feel like you're doing nothing, you're doing it right. Because if you use any of your theater techniques and you're, quote unquote pushing, it comes off ridiculous. I hated watching myself on film. Like, the first few classes that I had with him, I'm like, what am I doing? Why are my eyebrows moving like that? Oh, God.
Yeah, because everything about stage acting is about over-exaggerating.
Yeah.
And again, projecting to the back of the room. You want the person with the shittiest seats in the theater to be able to understand what you're doing physically. But on film,
it's just a thought.
They're basically sitting across a table from you, and if they're sitting in a movie theater, they're looking at your face 30 feet tall in front of them. The most minute little movements in your face are projected that much bigger. And it's all about scaling it down and being almost natural, but maybe even just a little bit undernatural.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because, you're watching me right now. I'm a very animated talker. Like, I definitely do use a lot of eyebrows. And if I do that on film, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's how I really talk, but it looks kind of weird.
I talk with my hands a lot.
Me too.
You see me shifting my hands on this microphone constantly. One wants to take dominant control of the conversation over the other. But no, yeah, I love performance. So, like, I became enamored with performance in the 6th grade myself when my dad got us tickets to the Old Globe. And so one of my very first stage play experiences was watching Peter Coyote and Stockard Channing do one of the very first runs of Neil Simon's Jake's Women.
Wow.
before it ever went to Broadway. And some people argue it was the better run because he didn't mess with the script as much as he did before it finally got to Broadway, and it wasn't as powerful on Broadway. But this performance here was unbelievable because Peter Coyote's character is trying to move on past his divorce, and he keeps seeing his ex-wife like in his head, and she's yelling at him in the house and stuff while he's actually interacting with other people in real life. And so he's simultaneously carrying conversations with Stockard Channing while having conversations with other people in the room, oftentimes with her standing like right in between him and the other character.
And so he's like, look through her.
He's got to look through her, and then he's got to look at her and then through her again. And all the while, like, allowing the audience to feel where his focus is. It was such an incredible experience. I mean, I was in 6th grade, and to this day, I still think back on that play and I go, God, that was amazing. That's why I wanted to start working in the theater and why I've become a director, because I want to direct those kinds of things. You know, I want to get into performance with actors and work with them to figure out how to make complicated, nuanced performances. I haven't done stage directing, but I was a theater major, so I've had my experiences on the stage. But I've gotten into film directing because I like the ability to work through a scene with actors on film and then like get to the point where like, this is it. I love this. And this is what we're going to show the world. Where stage is very different because it's different every night.
Yeah.
And one performance to the next isn't the same. And that's its own unique thing too. But I like committing a performance to film and then saying, this is it. This is the one I want people to see.
I go back and forth. I mean, I wouldn't be able to pick theater versus film, like if I love one more than the other, because like you said, there's different purpose to each and different experience to each. There are things that I love about film, like there's this movie, The Fall, that has Lee Pace in it. And it's this little Hungarian girl, and he's telling her a story, and you get to view it from her imagination. Mm-hmm. And so the way that that's depicted in the film, I've thought about it a million times. There's no way you could do it on stage and capture what's going on in her head the way that they have in that film. But at the same time, there's things about film or things about theater, like you said, like every night's different and the variance that you find in that, and these happy accident moments that occur in theater. And you can't get that from film. So both have their place, and I don't know.
I love them both.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely love them both. I choose to play in the one playground. Although I've talked about it a little bit the last year. If I even knew where to start, I'd love to direct a stage play, you know, and go through that process, because it has been for me 20 years since I've been in the theater. and you know, there is an appeal to going back to that for a while and kind of re-exploring that experience from my new perspective as, you know, a grown-ass man, you know, who's had a whole wealth of life that I didn't have when I was in the theater before.
I think it would be a lot of fun to take an original piece and do a staging and do a film and see how it changes between the two mediums, even if it were directed by the same person. Or
well, it's very interesting. My dad wrote a screenplay, one feature-length screenplay, but it was based off of the stage play that he'd written in the 90s. And he had been told by a couple different stage producers that it was too complicated a story for the stage. Maybe he should think about doing it as a film. And so when I started studying film, he actually took a screenwriting course with me at Palomar, and we both took the screenwriting course together, and he ended up writing his whole screenplay, adapting his play into a film script. And I've always thought that it would be really interesting to take both of those and produce them both and see what that experience would be like, to do his stage version of this story and then also try and do the film version of his story.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
If I can get the money at some point, I will.
So, I mean, I've seen a lot of Rocky Horror Picture Show, right? Like, everybody knows that was originally a stage production. There's also this really bizarre indie... It was originally a stage small opera, Repo, the Genetic Rock Opera. I think it was originally in L.A., and then they turned it into a film.
Yeah.
It's very bizarre. But it was a great idea. It was really cool to see, and they used a lot of the same actors from the stage production. So the fact that they had seen it through all these different iterations, like the incubation of, okay, what are we going to do for an idea, all the way through something that was pseudo-mass marketed. It was an indie sort of little film. But
there's a grander scale. Was it Rock of Ages?
Oh, yeah.
You know, that started out on stage, and Chris Hardwick actually played Stacey Jacks.
Really?
In the original stage production.
Wow.
Yeah.
If
you can picture that. The Nerdist himself.
I am trying real hard.
The Nerdist
to
himself
that.
was Stacey Jacks long before Tom Cruise donned the role.
Wow.
But if you want to talk about the difference between stage and film, like, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
If you think about Chris Hardwick and Tom Cruise, you know? And I thought that was one of the finest Tom Cruise performances I've seen in ages.
Oh, it cracked me. I was like crying, laughing. It was too like spot on. It was really
He
good.
really threw himself into it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the movie overall. I actually... There are aspects of the movie that I really like a lot better than the stage play, but then there's aspects of the stage play that I think just played a lot better than they did in the film. Neither one I thought worked entirely in either format. It's a very interesting thing. Watching the adaptations of both. But I don't know. Stage is complicated.
It is. Film is complicated though too, in different ways.
In different ways, yeah. I don't know. I like that with the film, like any location's possible, and you can run off and go actually shoot stuff, you know, in a real environment that feels like where you're at. Whereas you have to cut corners so often on the stage, and actors have to fill in so much of the gaps, and you have to trust your audience to fill in the gaps, and that's just the confines of being on one place. You know, and I get that, but I don't know. We were just watching, my sister and I just watched Mission Impossible, the most recent one. I forget what it's called.
It's like 5 or 6 or...
Yeah. Is it Ghost Protocol?
That sounds right.
I think that's it. So we were watching that the other day. And yeah, I love the cameras going around the world. Like, my dream is to get to make a movie where I get to go places and shoot stuff.
Well, of course. That would just be awesome.
I mean, as it is with my stupid little shorts here in town, I refuse to shoot them like in town. So we go out to Dulzura like we did for the 48. And I've gone and shot stuff up in Idlewood like we did for Things Happen.
Ooh.
You know, I want to try and find places that don't look like apartments downtown, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's just the kind of storyteller I am. I want to be surrounded by the environment.
Unique and different views. Yeah, it was beautiful out there in Dulzura. Like, talk about getting out into the wilderness. Like, I was driving up and the moon was like just as full as it could be, and you see the mountains. Oh.
And there was all that fog down in the valley and stuff.
So pretty.
I wish I had a camera that could have captured all that, because it was unreal.
Beautiful.
We had a good time shooting those movies.
Yeah.
2 movies.
2 movies.
2 movies. Those are premiering this Tuesday. It's part of Screening Group B, San Diego 48-Hour Film Project, at Reading Grossmont Center's Cinema. You can get the tickets. I believe if you just go on Facebook and look up the San Diego 48-Hour Film Project, you can find the link. Go buy tickets. Come watch our 2 films. Bittersweet Fortune, directed by me, and Discontinuance, directed by Diego Robles and Leon Bahar. Both intellectual entertainment films. They are quite the accomplishment. We did 2 films with a lot of the same cast, playing the same characters in both movies. It is, as I think I wrote on Facebook, 2 stories, 1 universe. And so we really challenged ourselves.
And if you don't know, shooting a film in 48 hours, that's unheard of. It's quite an accomplishment. And nobody killed anybody, so that's always good. If you can get through a 48 and your team's not at each other's throats, you're doing good.
Or relatively not at each other's throats. So many teams. I talked to so many different people this past week. Like, so many teams had problems.
Oh, yeah.
Personality problems, conflicts of interest, like whatever. Just, it's tough, man.
Yeah, I mean...
I like to call the 48 the pressure cooker.
That is a good thing to call it. That's definitely true.
It's where you get to see where the chinks are in your armor, where the cracks are in your team, where the weak spots are.
I mean, it's a good thing.
I like to do it in the 48 rather than do it on gigs we're getting paid for.
Yeah, and it's a good thing for people to experience that, because then, yeah, self-awareness sort of thing, too. Not just team, but, like, if you take time afterwards and contemplate, it's like, what could I have done better on this project?
Well, I think that's a good question to ask after any project.
It is.
You know?
It is, but it's like you said, like whenever you put it in the pressure cooker, it's like...
Everything's magnified.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Had you done a 48 before?
I had. I did one last year here in San Diego, and then I did one in Atlanta. And also at University of Virginia, they have... It's essentially the same thing, only it's specifically for the Virginia Film Festival. Mm-hmm. And I did that 3 years in a row? 2? 3 years? No, I think 3 years. Grad school seemed like way more than 3 years.
Oh, that's funny. Everything always seems longer than it actually is.
Yeah. You miss it whenever it's gone, though. Like, there were 8 grad students in my acting program. And, you know, when you are working, like 18 hours a day with 8 people, and I lived with 2 of them for 2 of the years, you just get so close. Like, almost instantly, within the first couple of weeks, these people become your best friends that you've known forever. And then to go off, like, a bunch of them are in New York, and they're doing really well. But I just miss checking in with them on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And right after grad school, we were really good about, like, doing a monthly check-in, but, you know, you get busy.
It fades over time.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now I see what they're doing through Facebook, but I haven't talked to them in a while, and I miss it. As stressful as grad school was, I miss that. I miss the people, and I miss the collaboration, because, man, did we bounce things. We learned so much from each other. And our class went so far as, because a lot of us were older, everybody had backgrounds that they were bringing in. Like, there were some folks, Brad Frazier and Sandy Carroll were both clown trained, and so we would do weekend intensives for each other where one person would teach the class and we'd just share our own personal knowledge of things. And so they made me really love clown, so much so that I went and studied at Del Arte in Blue Lake to continue learning commedia and clown, and in the Movement Center in D.C., so that was clown specifically. But yeah, like, their enthusiasm for it was infectious, and it's really, as far as making big choices and not really caring how silly you look, which is, you know, you need that, right? You need to just go for it. Those two definitely instilled that in me, and it's nice to have colleagues that you can learn from in that manner.
Right.
So I love finding people like that, and I think I'm going to find that here in San Diego.
Well, I hope so. I feel like my general belief is you need to surround yourself with people who are going to constantly challenge you to be better, challenge you to find different ways of approaching things, challenge you to just think differently about your approach to whatever it is we're working on. When you can find that group of people that you feel comfortable enough to be challenged by, that's when great things start to happen, you know? And I think to your comment about being depressed when you got to Atlanta, when you were just going back and forth, work to home, you weren't surrounded by those people.
Exactly.
You know, and I think there's a part of us, especially as creatives, when we don't have someone challenging us, I think it's real easy for us to just kind of crawl into a hole and be like, I don't know why I'm sad, but I'm sad.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because it's not just the work, but it has to be fulfilling work.
Yeah.
And part of that is having colleagues that...
So it was just about the work. We'd all be economists or, whatever.
Exactly.
We're creatives because it's about passion. That's the song of our heart. And we need to have other people who sing it with us.
And like you said, people who, are maybe just above whatever level you're resting on, so you can pull up to their level. That's a crazy thing. Teaching, if you pair someone with somebody who's just slightly above their level, man, will those people rise to that occasion. Or if you have a cast and you have like one or two people that are just phenomenal, everybody else wants to come up to their level to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nice to always surround yourself with where you would like to be. It gives you something to shoot for an achievement. There's
an old story Kevin Smith used to tell about Jason Mewes.
Yeah?
He said when they went to do Dogma, he's like, he pulled Jason aside like a couple weeks before they started shooting. He's like, all right, so we just cast this Alan Rickman guy. And Jay was like, yeah, so he's like, you understand, this guy is like a classically trained Shakespearean actor. He's the legit, real thing. None of this Ben Affleck stuff. He's a real actor. He's an actor. You can't show up and do your snoochy boochy shit. You have to be prepared, right? And he said Jay was like, oh, okay, And they show up like 2 weeks later to shoot the movie. And he goes up to Jay and says, so, do you know your lines? And Jay goes, I know all of them. You know all your lines? No, I know all of them. I know the whole script. He's like, what? He's like, Rain Man learned everybody's lines of dialogue. He knew the entire script word for word all the way through. I could ask him a specific page and he'd tell me exactly what it was. But that's what it was. Like, he was challenged. You're going to have this real actor on set. Don't come here unprepared. And he rose to the occasion, as best Jay Mewes can.
With that thought in mind, the next film we do, let's get Patrick Stewart. I would like to rise to that occasion.
Oh, man. That would be a dream. I would love to work with that guy.
Oh, he seems awesome.
My dad and my sisters and I watched Star Trek The Next Generation like religiously every week. It was required viewing, family viewing every week. First airings all the way through the whole series until the final season. The final season I was in Texas doing college, so I watched by myself on the final season. But yeah, my dad loved Patrick Stewart.
He's brilliant. And he doesn't take himself too seriously. Like, all the little voiceover things or the
Well, I love the stories of how he's changed over time. Because apparently when they started Next Generation, he was super stodgy. And like, it was all about the work, and he didn't like humor on the set, and everybody got real tense around him all the time. But that cast specifically, he has said it many, many times in conventions and stuff over and over again. That cast over the course of the series taught him to not take himself so seriously and to enjoy the work, not just do the work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can totally be professional and still have camaraderie and enjoyment on a set. And it's a balance that you have to strike, but I'm glad he found that.
Yeah. Oh, I love all the stuff he does with Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
You see them doing photos and stuff in the streets of New York, and they're hilarious together.
I want to be their friend. They seem like they're having a great time.
I want to find that friend for me. I want to do that. Like, just have a really good time.
You will. But, I mean, look how long it took them to find each other.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime goal to find a friend like that.
There you go. So what finally had you leaving Atlanta and moving to LA?
Oh, my goodness. So there's a step in between. So I left Atlanta. I'd been working there a couple years and working pretty continually and not getting paid very much. So I'm like, well, I think I'm going to go back to school. And so I went back to grad school and got my master's in acting. And when I was done with that, I was quite decisive in the fact that I wanted to come out to LA because I thought my medium was going to be film TV. So I'm like, that's where I'm going to go. Like I said, a lot of the other folks in my graduate program went New York bound because they wanted to stay in the theater realm. But yeah, so I went and I moved up to LA for about 9 months until John finished up his PhD, and then we moved down here for UCSD.
How was the 9 months in LA?
I worked a lot. And, part of that was because, I was missing my honey. So I distracted myself with whatever type of work I could find. I did some stage stuff. I did lots of extra work. Anything that I could do that kept me in the realm of why I was there.
Now, Brian, my brother-in-law, my DP, my co-producer, Brian, he perused your IMDb the other day after we had our chat, and
oh goodness,
he sent me a message.
I'm a little frightened right now. You guys should see the expression that's on David's face. It's really nefarious.
He sent me this message that I'm supposed to read to you on the episode. So here it is. He says, "Don't forget to ask Whit." Apparently, he's going to call you Whit.
Whit's fine. Lots of people call me that.
"What's the deal with being typecast as an airline passenger? Do you get free miles just for playing a passenger on TV? Are you jealous of Shane Allen for his recent passenger portrayal in Sully? And did that jealousy emerge on set during the 48?"
I am absolutely jealous of Shane Allen for being on the new movie Sully, because he got to hang out with Aaron Eckhart and Tom Hanks.
And Clint Eastwood.
Just like hanging out with them right there. I don't know why I keep getting cast as an airline, because I can look scared, and I can start crying, which they had me do in the Supergirl episode because our plane was crashing.
See, I have to go back and watch that episode now.
Supergirl rescued us. The other one, the Meet the Browns episode, I loved that because, one, I got to have a close-up of me being really snotty and rolling my eyes at Mr. Brown, but also, and I cannot for the life of me remember the gentleman's name who plays Mr. Brown. In between takes, he didn't just go back to his little, star room. He sat there and did stand up for all of the extras and was just I was crying. And he was just so nice. I loved working on that set. Everybody was super nice. And Tyler Perry has the best craft services of anyone ever. They have a full restaurant.
Yeah.
We went to lunch and literally you walk in and they have all these buffets, but then they also have a chef. And you walk up to the chef and he's like, "What would you like?" I'm like, "Well, what are our options?" He's like, "What would you like?" Oh gosh. I think I ended up having roast beef au jus and chocolate cake, and that's whenever I was younger and it didn't matter how many calories I ate while I was at craft services. I ate a lot of things while I was at Tyler Perry Studios. There were so many good things to eat. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So, yeah, I don't know why I'm typecast as a passenger. I just look like somebody who travels.
There you go, Brian. I asked. So, after LA, you come to San Diego because of your fiance and his needs to be here. What was your game plan for yourself when you came to town? This not being LA.
You know what? I kind of figured if I'm in California, it's a whole 3 hours to LA. I used to live in Kansas City and commute from KC to St. Louis, and it's about 3.5 hours. It's not a big deal. For someone who used to drive 20 minutes to get to a grocery store, 3 hours is not a thing. So
now, I'm constantly being hounded by people that Oceanside is too far away from downtown.
Yeah.
It's 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
I've never had a problem with driving long distances. I've done it a lot. And I still do auditions in LA. So I don't really think... And plus, there's so many times whenever they have you record yourself and send in auditions, a little bit of a commute does not hinder me in continuing to pursue anything. And frankly... I like it better in San Diego, just as a place to be.
Right.
It's way more laid back. I liked living in LA. I lived out in Santa Monica, so I was pretty close to the beach. And like I said, I need to stay in contact with some form of nature. So I religiously, one day a week, went down to the beach, left my phone at home, and it was like, no one is going to bother me. So yeah, as long as I have my little piece of nature so I can like calm myself once a week, I can live just about anywhere, and I can still do my job from, I mean, I'm getting a lot of gigs in San Diego. San Diego is very up and coming, which I also like, because in LA, I feel like you really have to fight. I mean, you go to an open call and there are 500 people there, if not more. And here, there are equally good roles and not 500 people to fight with.
Right.
So I really hope that San Diego continues to grow. And I know that there was some issue with there's not a film commission here right now or something of that nature.
Yeah. You know, the long sullied history of our film commission. Our film commission got shut down in 2011. Got mismanaged by the mayor's office, basically. They took it out of special events and stuck it under the purview of the tourism and marketing district, whose only measure of success in anything is heads in beds. And a film commission is not about tourism, not directly. So it was very hard for the film commission to justify the money they were being given to the tourism and marketing district, because they weren't bringing more than, you know, maybe a couple hundred hotel nights to town for crews coming in, but they were doing, you know, $100 million worth of local jobs that went away. So that shut down a few years back. Mayor Falconer, County Supervisor Dave Roberts, they've been working very hard for the last couple of years to try and get a film office / film commission kind of restarted here in town. And they've already started that process, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that over the last 6 months or so, with Pitch being shot here.
Last Ship?
Animal Kingdom. Last Ship actually shot their stuff before these things happened, and it was just a tiny little piece that they shot here. We got Animal Kingdom shooting stuff up in Oceanside. Netflix has been shooting a telenovela here in town for the last 4 months or so. I actually got called out Monday to do stand-in work on it, but I couldn't go. So it was too short notice.
One of my friends is a grip for that.
Yeah. So, one of my friends gripped on that as well. So, you know, it's good. There are shows coming into town. Right now it's mostly extra work and some crew work that's being done. But if we can make it easier for Hollywood to reestablish itself here, then there will be more shows coming here for longer periods of shooting, not just specialty shots. So, do
you think there's anything that the film community can do to help that process, or is it just a waiting on the government?
The biggest concern for Hollywood, from anybody I've talked to from up there, is the ease of being able to come down here and get the required permits, you know, streamline their production without having to go to like 17 different district offices to make things happen. Because there's something like 17 or 18 different districts within San Diego County that a film crew would have to interact with independently to get permitting based on where they want to shoot. And that's just a logistics nightmare for a film crew. They don't want to have to do that. They want to go to one place, get their film permits, and then go show up and shoot. So what a film office or a film commission does is it facilitates streamlining that process. You go in, you say, this is where we want to shoot. There's usually a location guide, you know, so they don't necessarily have to drive all over the county trying to figure out where they want to shoot. They have a list of film-friendly places to do things. So, I mean, they're used to film commissions and film offices. Those can be independently run businesses and are in some places. But because of the need to interact with local fire, local police, you know, city services.
Bureaucratic nightmare.
It's a bureaucratic nightmare if you're not in some way associated with city government as well. So you can go to the state film commission and try and do stuff through them to interact, with the cities down here. But again, without our own film office, it's been difficult. Beginning of the year, they approved the budget. They hired a woman. I can't remember her name, but she's functioning out of the special events department now. And they rebranded the name of the special events office. It's the San Diego Special Events and Filming Office. And so there is now a person that Hollywood and independent film producers and whatever can go to and say, we want to shoot in town, help us get our permits. And so that piece of the wheel is being greased. And so that, I think, is what has been resulting in some of these shows coming down here to shoot things. And as that grows, and theoretically as the semi-independent film office, which is the next stage of their plan, finally comes to fruition, then we will really have a fully functioning film office that will encourage film to come here. Because that's the other thing that a film commission and a film office does, is they go out
marketing
and encourage
and
people to
for
shoot
San Diego.
Yeah. So it's they're working on it. They've been making progress on it. I know there are people in town who are frustrated at the speed at which it's going, but it's bureaucracy.
Yeah,
it moves
that's how
as
government
it moves,
works. It's slow.
They're moving pretty fast, for what it is. But yeah, I mean, we could all do a better job of, I think, not poo-pooing LA all the time. I think there's a lot of us who make a lot of public statements about LA sucking and whatever. And the reality is all the money that we want to make movies and stuff comes from LA.
Yeah.
So, we got to stop pitching a war against them and start acting more like a partner. And then, for that matter, we got to go up there as independent filmmakers and make a name for ourselves up there a little bit too. Be willing to go work on shows up there, not just as actors, but as crew members and as associate producers and editors and whatever. We need to establish our people within that community too, so that when they're looking at stuff, they're just 3 hours away, and I really like working with them. So,
and if they shot anything down here, they would know that they have a local crew they can turn to because those people worked on productions in LA.
Exactly. And if we're fundamentally financially cheaper, but we can show that we can do the same work, then that's even more enticing to the studios to go, we'll relinquish control out of Hollywood and let you go do the work down there because it's going to save us money. In the end, they want to save money as long as they can get the quality they're looking for. But we're not going to show them that we have the quality that they're looking for unless we start being more active in going to LA and letting them understand that San Diegans are actually capable of doing the work. So that's my soapbox.
All right. Call to action. Raise your game, San Diego.
Raise your game. Yeah, I mean, I periodically work on films up in LA, short films and features both, as much as anything, just because I want to make sure I have connections up there. And those connections have resulted in things that work. Things Happen, which I won Best Director for at this year's Film Awards, is a project that came to me through an LA director that I've worked as a DP for many, many times. And it was a project that he wasn't really up to do because he's kind of moved beyond the scope of what that project was. But he told that writer, you should take this down to Dave Dawson in San Diego. I bet he could produce it for you. He'll direct it for you, and he'll do a bang-up job.
Yeah.
And that worked.
That's just the nature of the industry. It's it seems like it's a big community, but it's such a small community. Like, people I've worked with in Atlanta know people out in LA, know people here. So yeah, it's those little connections, and you never know. Like, it'll be some small job that you did that maybe a year, 2 years later, somebody call you up and be like, "Hey, somebody recommended you for this."
Yeah, well, and it's little things, and it's part of the reason why I started the podcast. So I wanted to have an excuse to get out there and talk to people in the industry, not just here in San Diego, but up in LA as well. And sometimes people give me a bit of grief that I focus on Hollywood people. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with focusing on Hollywood people. There are people who work in our industry. There are colleagues. There are, they are the people that we should know. And they're very cool. Like we had John Bailey, who does the voice of Honest Trailers for Screen Junkies on the show. And, back during Comic-Con, Tonight in San Diego was trying to figure out what they could do to spruce up their Comic-Con episode. And I was sitting in on meetings at the time because I spent most of the summer, kind of volunteering and helping out. And I heard their discussion. And I said, well, John Bailey's been on my podcast and, we're kind of friendly on Facebook and whatnot. Like I could give him a ring and see if he'd voice the opening. Like, that'd be totally cool. So I contacted him, and a few days later, we got a recording from him. He recorded the opening to Tonight in San Diego for their Comic-Con episode, and it was kick-ass, and it's totally cool. And it elevated that episode of Tonight in San Diego, but it only happened because I'm out talking to people in L.A., And weirdly enough, John doesn't even live in L.A. He lives in Tennessee, but he goes to L.A. to do a lot of voiceover work. So, I just stepped on your foot.
Oh. Yeah, I mean,
but we all have to be that those connections are important.
Well, and people are from...
We can't live in a bubble down here.
People are from all over, you can't be all regionalistic. Probably not a word.
Sounded like a word. We had letters in it. But, no, it's... networking and effective networking is a huge part of what we do.
It's true.
And I think...
You gotta like people, or at least pretend to like people.
And I think learning how to step out of your comfort zone is part of that networking. And I think we could all do it a little better than we have been, is I guess what I'm getting to. So, for what that's worth.
Yeah.
And it's not about going to parties. It's about, effectively having conversations with people and establishing a rapport that translates into work.
It's true.
So, what projects do you have going on here in town right now?
Oh, yikes. Well, other than starting this podcast, Shane Allen has asked me to be a part of one of his projects. I think it's okay for me to say that. Hope so. I'm sure I'll get a phone call if not. And outside of that...
You still working on Heroes of Men?
Yeah. We have it on hold until October. But we should be shooting some new things in October. And... let me think. 4 Points is coming up.
Yes.
And there have been discussions amongst some of my theater comrades of doing a new piece, devising something, but we want a really long incubation period. And that's in hopes of doing something for Fringe, which is not until next June, July, but we really wanted it to be organic. So we're like, well, let's try and do a super long incubation period and just see what comes out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
well, I'm super excited to have you on the show, and
I'm super excited to be on the show.
We've got a lot of things coming up over the next 6 months or to a year, and it's all exciting. I'm not ready to tell everybody what it all is, but it is stuff I've been working on for several months, and hopefully, if things go the way we are planning. We'll be making formal announcements on a bunch of this stuff in the next few weeks. And have some new stuff for people to enjoy sometime this fall.
Sometime in the future.
But yeah, a lot of things going on. So I know that I'm super excited and super scared of everything that I've got cooking up right now.
That's probably a good place to be.
And yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Little healthy fear mixed in with the excitement. I think
the fact that I'm scared about it is good. Because my dad always told me that if you weren't willing to fail trying something, you'd never accomplish anything. So a healthy dose of fear means I'm actually willing to fail at stuff.
Yeah, there's some risk to it.
Yeah, so it feels good. So, but yeah, it's super exciting. So thank you for joining us, Whitney.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we'll wrap this episode up.
All right. Well, it's nice meeting you all through the radio, kind of. I feel like I've met you all. I hope you feel like you've met me.
Well, I will say this. Being part of the podcast, being one of our hosts, it's important to me to have many voices on the show. Because my voice isn't like the only end-all, be-all of anything. So I like having co-hosts. It's important to me to have co-hosts. And I like to get new voices on as often as I can.
We're just an ever-growing family.
Yeah.
It's getting
just a
bigger.
Big family of creatives. That's what we got going on in Intellectual.
We should have a family reunion, and everyone should bring a potluck dish.
I haven't been to like a real family reunion in like 30 years.
Well, we should have an intellectual family reunion. Mostly I just want food.
I was actually talking to Linda Skeens today. Like, we should do an intellectual retreat up at the cabin in Idlewild where we shut things happen.
Ooh.
Go up there and like write and hang out and like just recharge the batteries. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Now we're just making everybody jealous. They're all like going to want to go get food now.
Yeah, I'm pretty stuffed. I don't need any food right now. But I got to go because I'm going to finish up our trailers for our movies tonight. And yeah, hopefully we'll see everybody Tuesday night at the Reading Cinemas in Grossmont Center for screening Group B of the San Diego 48-Hour Film Project, where you will get to see the amazing things we did in a weekend. 2 films. Two films. I don't know why I'm holding my fingers like this. Nobody can see it except you. But we did 2 movies in a weekend, and I'm super, super proud of the team. And Whitney stars in both of them, and she's excellent in both films.
Aw, thank
Shane
you.
Allen is excellent in both films. Randy Davison and my sister Laura Davis are excellent in their individual performances in the films. And everybody else who came out and helped out on the movies, like, I hope you guys can make it out. I know a few of you already have told me you're not going to be able to because of traveling or whatever, but if you can make it out, please come and watch them. They're worth seeing on the big screen. And I think you'll be really proud to get to see them in front of a crowd and say, hey, I made that. So,
See you guys on Tuesday.
all right, ciao.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.